WDW Radio, your information station.
So we are now sitting with a true Disney legend who, for many people, Charlie, it's true. He is a Disney legend. And he doesn't really need very much introduction because chances are you may have heard of or read about or even had a chance to meet Charlie Ridgway. He is a Disney legend. He has been with the company for a couple of years.
I was with the company beginning in 1963 for about 42 years. After that, I've been essentially retired for the last 5-6 years, and happily so. But I miss being here, and I have a lot of great memories of everything dating back even well beyond the opening 40 years ago.
Yeah, because you really sort of came to Disney by covering Disney, being a sort of reporter, and next thing you know, you are working for and with Walt.
I lived in Anaheim and worked in downtown Los Angeles for a number of years before Disneyland came along. And so I saw it taking shape as I was on my way to the beach on Sundays and so forth, and I knew it was going to be something different, so I kept after my city editor to let me do a story on it. And he kept putting me off and said, well, let's wait till it's nearer done and what. So he finally gave in after getting tired of it listening to me all the time. I had an idea to introduce it in a different way of having a 6-year-old kid sneaking in for a peek at the park when it was a long way from being finished, although it was only 2 or 3 months till opening. And so I borrowed a neighbor kid. I didn't have any of my own, and went him out. We met a photographer out there, and we took him around, and the photographer had a bugle and a Boy Scout hat and various other props, and we posed the kid in front of the castle, which was only about half up at the time, in 7-league boots, and we had him fishing in the Frontierland River. Technology from then until now. When I started to work at Disneyland, we just barely had electric typewriters. In fact, I didn't like electric typewriters, so I had an old Royal manual typewriter. We didn't have fax machines. We had to put our press releases on a mimeograph stencil and then take it over to the mailroom and run it off. We didn't have telephones or mobile phones or radios. We had radios, but the operations people had the only ones that were available, so we could make use of those. So it was we didn't have computers. We had to do our mailing list by hand, and we had an old crank machine which would crank out on metal plates the addresses for our press releases and so forth. So it was a very different world in many respects, particularly when it comes to the electronic media.
Well, you guys, you to a certain degree, as time went on, that was one of the things that you guys really were sort of groundbreaking on with the use of satellite technology. Now we just have a little computer with a wireless card, and we're able to broadcast to people anywhere, anytime.
We really sort of discovered satellite transmission and so forth with the opening of EPCOT. We brought in a huge truck with a satellite dish on it and whatnot, and we offered television stations around the country the opportunity to send their anchors in to do remote broadcasts, and it turned out to be a huge success. So from then on, when we had major events, we had sometimes as many as 80 or 90 television stations and 150 radio stations broadcasting out of here by satellite.
Yeah, and your story is fascinating, not only because of the time that you spent at Disneyland working with Walt, and one of the few people who could tell Walt what to do and where to go and where to stand.
Well, no, that's quite accurate, but I could ask him.
But you were there when Walt Disney World was a vision, when it was a concept, it was an idea, and you sort of saw that progress through Walt's vision of it, and then in Walt's passing too.
Well, originally it was a big secret, and I didn't know about it. Very few people in the company did, or relatively few anyway. So when 1965 we were doing a 10th anniversary of Disneyland, and we had press people coming out and whatnot. And one day I got a call from the studio. They said, "It's true you have a bunch of press people from Florida coming in next week or tomorrow?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, we've had them from all over." He said, "Well, you can't tell them anything about the Florida project." And I said, "What Florida project?" He said, "Well, I guess if you don't know anything about it, you can't tell them." I said, "Yeah, but they're going to have lunch with Walt tomorrow." He said, "Well, that's Walt's problem." And it was, because he tried to dodge the issue, and the Orlando Sentinel came up with the conclusion that it really was Disney that was buying all this property out here. So I was sort of partly responsible for letting the cat out of the bag a little sooner than they wanted, but it was, I think, perhaps within 2 months of it, they were going to be ready to make the announcement. And so they speeded that up a little bit. 3 or 4 weeks later, had a big press conference down here, and there were more people, more radio and newspaper people that came to that press conference than any one that had been held in Florida up to that point, including everything at Cape Kennedy and Roosevelt's press conferences during his era and so forth. So it was a big event for the state, and I wasn't involved with it. I heard about it, but that's about all. Until much later, in 1969, I came down for the first time and got a chance to come out and look at the site when it was just barely started. I remember we were in a Jeep and going over dirt roads, and it seemed like we were on the property forever before we finally got out to the site. And all we had at that point was pretty much a hole in the ground, and they'd taken most of the dirt out of what's now the Seven Seas Lagoon and stacked it up where the Magic Kingdom is, so that we're actually about a story above the level of the ground before.
And that's one of the things that continues to say that fascinates me about Walt Disney World is turning this miles of desolate. I mean, it was a swamp. It was a mucky, murky, disgusting swampland. They were able to buy it, and then secretly, that could never ever happen again.
A lot of swamp and so forth. Yeah, no, I think it was a very extraordinary event, but I think even more extraordinary is what we have been able to do with the property since then, and to preserve many of the better qualities of the property while developing it with a very much a modern technique of and modern entertainment and so forth. That I think what we've done in terms of quality of development has helped to set a standard for people of this area and perhaps of the world in how things ought to be done in order not to ruin what you were trying to play with.
Charlie, we've had you on the show before. I could sit here and talk to you again for hours because you have such a unique perspective on the growth of Disney and even where we're at today. Hopefully we'll be able to see you again later on today. I know there's a lot of other people that want to talk to you. But those of you who are watching here, if you want to hear more from Charlie, not only check out older episodes of WDW Radio where we tour the parks and we've interviewed Charlie, but also go and check out his book called Spinning Disney's World. It's available at Amazon and Intrepid Traveler. And when you see Charlie, give him a hug because he's a big hugger. Charlie's a big hugger. Charlie, thank you so much.
Thanks.
I appreciate it.